All right, hello everyone, Earth people, welcome, welcome, welcome. So today I now want to get into something called the shoulder loop, and we're also going to talk about a yoga push-up. So typically our modern life is just kind of working our shoulders forward. There's kind of like a funny meme of like, they have that evolutionary kind of like thing, right? And now we're starting to kind of crumple back down, driving on our car, being on our smartphone, typing at the computer. All of these things are sort of societally drawing the shoulders forward, but they don't live there. Like your shoulders live on your back. So essentially, shoulder loop is really a practice on working the muscles to enable you to have better posture, but also by having better posture, it prevents a lot of the over stretching that happens in the muscles of the back that then cause all those like knots and stuff that you feel when you're getting a massage or something like that. So we're really going to work on developing and finding those blind spots behind us. We can do this really simply. You don't even have to stand up. You can just do it if you're sitting down. You can't do it lying down. So really, really simply, what I want you to do is shrug your shoulders all the way up to your ears. Okay. Now, we don't want our shoulders to live here, clearly, like this isn't it either. But by lifting them up, it's going to help us do something that's really, really important. And that's draw the shoulder blades together. So your shoulder blades are those scapula behind you. I'm going to grab Bonita here in a second. But the last part of the shoulder loop is then to pull your shoulders away from your ears. All right. So do it with me. You went up to the shoulders, shoulder blades back together, keep squeezing them together, and then draw them down the back. And you can see now my shoulders are living where they're meant to live. Hold on one second. And I'm just going to show you what I mean by the shoulder blades, and that's these things back here. Now with Bonita, they're sort of pinned in so they don't, because these can move quite a bit. Those like kind of bony wing things you see on people, behind them and stuff. So this is the scapula is the anatomical name, but they're commonly referred to as the shoulder blades. Thanks, Bonita. You're the best. So this idea of shoulder loop is going to be crucial in our last couple of poses that we're going to understand for sun salutation A. All right, and the one I'm going to start with to really address the shoulder loop is Cobra pose. Now, this is sort of a pet peeve of mine. I don't go to yoga studios so much anymore, but when I do, I still see this all the time. I see this in yoga advertisements. I see this in yoga videos sometimes. I see it in my students a lot. So here's what happens in this pose. So again, I'm just going to have a little blanket down here to just sort of give me a little bit of cushion so I'm not laying directly on the tile floor. Don't even really need it, to be honest, but so you'll be on your belly, okay? And we're going to get here from lowering into a yoga push-up, and we'll get to that next. But what people do in Cobra pose, and again, this is the thing that I don't want you to do. This is sort of my pet peeve. But what they do is they just push their hands straight down into the ground to lift up their upper body while their lower body is on the ground. The shoulders are up by the ears typically. The arms are locked out. And in my opinion, this is not the pose. To straighten your arms out for like the vast majority of people is no problem whatsoever. This really doesn't work anything in particular. So what I'm going to ask you to do is really avoid the tendency to just want to straighten your arms. In fact, like you're barely using your arms at all. Cobra pose, we really want to emphasize our upper back muscles. Okay, and we're going to use shoulder loop to do that. Check it out. Just watch. So I'm going to be on my belly. And the first thing is my hand position. All right, that's going to set me up for success. If my hands are too far forward, this is not going to work out. I don't even really want my hands underneath my shoulders. I actually want them more in line with my armpits, like next to my upper ribs. Now, You can see my legs. Okay, my toes are not tucked underneath. I'm reaching my toes back behind me. So as you get more familiar with this pose, really emphasizing reaching your toes behind you is a nice sort of intermediate focus. But for now, most people just need to focus on the upper body. Okay, so here it goes. Cobra pose. What you're going to do is you're going to lift your chest and head by using your upper back and shoulders. So this is what it looks like. As I start to inhale, I'm going to actually shrug my shoulders up to my ears. That actually kind of helps to lift me just a little bit. Now, the next part of my lift comes when I pull my shoulder blades together. You can see how I come up about an inch or two higher. Then I pull my shoulders away from my ears, and that lifts me another inch or two. Notice how much lower I am than the pose that I showed you earlier, the kind of the incorrect version. All right? My elbows are tight to my body because I'm squeezing my shoulder blades. I'm squeezing my scapula. That's naturally creating this grasshopper type of arm. All right? My elbows are not out to the side. So shoulder blades squeeze together. That'll help the elbows squeeze together. And I'm not looking up, straining my neck. Just looking down at the floor. Cobra pose. Slowly lowering forward to come back down. Now I want you to do that with me, okay? Here we go. Laying flat onto the ground, toes pointing back, legs are kind of active back. Hands are right about, thumbs around the armpit area, upper ribs, not underneath the shoulders, definitely not in front of the shoulders. Here we go. Gather yourself with an exhale, relax everything here. Now, on the inhale, start by shrugging the shoulders up to the ears. As you start to lift, pull the shoulder blades together. That's going to lift you a little higher. Now send the shoulders away from the ears. And that's it. Go ahead, lower yourself down on exhale. I'm going to do that a couple times together. Inhale. Shoulders up to the ears. Shoulder blades squeeze together. Shoulders down the back. Shoulder loop. Squeeze down, squeeze together, and then start to lower. Now, you might not be able to do this on one inhale. Okay, it's kind of tricky to inhale in this position because if you come up too fast, I find that your sort of diaphragm gets blocked by the pressure of your body against the ground. So you really want to like slowly creep into this and let your inhale like slowly take you up. You know, it's called Cobra. You know, it's got that, you're slowly moving up. You know, you see the snake charmers and stuff that used to, you know, play music, and the Cobra just didn't pop out like a Jack in the Box, right? It's kind of got this slow serpentine movement. So you want to see if you can really employ that. Let's do a couple more together. Find your exhale. Wiggle yourself in. Hands are flat. You know what? In fact, let's do this. Lift your hands up an inch or two, or off the ground. So let's take our arms out of the equation. Here we go. Inhale, lifting up. Squeeze together. And then shoulders down the back. Look, ma, no hands. Do that twice more. Lowering down. You can set your hands down as you finish your exhale. Just make sure to lift them up before you start your inhale. And then start to ride that breath up. Shoulders squeeze together. And shoulders down the back. One more, no hands. And then go ahead. You can kind of rest yourself here for a second. Create a little pillow with your hands or your forearms. Okay? Now, I really wanted to emphasize the fact that you're really not using your arms or your hands much, but you can start to use them to promote that shoulder blade pulling together and down. How you do that is really important, okay? When you use the hands, if you use the hands, okay, if this becomes difficult for you, you come to this later, but you want to use the hands where they're dragging back to your body. All right, so I'm exaggerating here by pulling them forward and dragging them back like this, okay? I'm not pushing down. All right? I'm not pushing forward. I'm dragging my hands back, essentially. Now, I'm over-exaggerating this. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to over-exaggerate this. So come back, come off your pillow, and I want you to take your hands out in front, Superman style or something. Now, my hands are shoulder-width apart. I'm still pointing my toes back behind me. And what we're going to do here is we're going to try to do Cobra. I sometimes call this Super Cobra, by simply grabbing onto the ground, getting a grip, and then pulling backwards. It's like I'm trying to drag myself forward, and my head just comes up a little bit. But I feel a lot of work happening in my shoulders, so I'm really trying to pull backwards this way, okay? I don't want you to do that. I want you to keep your hands glued. Go ahead, come down for a second. Let's try that again. So again, the hand stayed glued, and you pull the hands back. Elbows don't go out to the side. Elbows stay in, so your arms stay parallel. And now try to lift your chest up and lift your head up. Eyes are on the ground in front of you. And again, the action here is you're pulling the ground backward. But that's the movement we want to get into if we use our hands. And our hands are going to be next to our upper rib cage by the armpits. So now let's try that. All right, just give it a go and see how we go here. And you might, if you haven't done this before, tomorrow you might be a little sore in some spots you've never even felt before if you're doing this with me. So keep going. And it's a good sore. It's not going to be a bad sore. It's going to be like, ooh. And I'll tell you what pose is great if you get sore back there, by the way. Cat pose is going to be the nice counter to that if that happens. Anyway, let's come back into it. So Cobra, pointing the toes. Find your inhale. Let your shoulder loop bring you up. Now, as you pull your shoulders away from your ears, you can use your hands and drag back a little bit. You can see my blanket moving a little bit on me. So that's the only direction we want to go with our arms and our hands. Lower down, twice more. Reset my hands. Try to do this on inhales now. So slowly inhaling. Shoulder blades squeeze together. Shoulders down, and maybe those hands slide back. And that's a tough move to make. So if the hand sliding back is too much for you, it's all right if you come back to that later. One more time, please. Inhale to lift. Squeeze. Keep the squeeze, shoulders down. Maybe the hands can assist as well. Back of the neck nice and long. Sweet. All right. So that's Cobra pose, all right? Really be disciplined with that because especially in classes that tend to move sort of fast, people lose that quality of really utilizing these upper back muscles. And this is what's going to support your posture. This is what's going to support your overall well-being. Not pushing your arms straight down and feeling like, oh, look at how high I am in this Cobra pose. No. It's not about where you're going, it's how you do it. This is like one of the key concepts, in my opinion, for a yoga practice. Now, the yoga push-up, oftentimes called Chaturunga or Chaturunga Dandasana, is not like a normal push-up. So typically, you'll see a lot of people, I'm going to show you from this side so you can see my elbows, but a lot of times when people do push-ups, their elbows go way out to the side as they come down, okay? So this is one of the major distinctions between, I'd say, a common push-up and more of a yoga-based push-up. And this is really good, just anatomically speaking. This is way better for your shoulder health. And so what it's going to look like, if you notice the comparison, is my elbows are going to be alongside of my body. Again, that grasshopper style, okay? So that's it from the front. Let me show you from the side. Now, in yoga, we call this plank. You know, I know in the fitness world, oftentimes this is plank, but we call that forearm plank in yoga. And plank is just like the top of a push-up, okay? Now, from here, notice how my toes can move backwards and forwards. So if you're doing this with me, go ahead and give this a try, all right? Because what we're going to do is we're actually use our toes and shift our shoulders. So instead of being directly on top of the wrists, we're going to bring the shoulders so they're more like over our knuckles, our base knuckles. And this little shift, small, is going to help us to keep our elbows in. So I'm going to lower down. I'm going to lower down halfway until my shoulders and my elbows are on the same level. All right? My arms are squeezing in together. And this pose, what I call low plank or Chaturunga Dandasana, is the pose. And then when you lower, hit your heart first and then your belly a close second. Okay? The reason I say this is because I notice in a lot of yoga classes, people think Chaturanga is just lowering down. There's actually that hover spot. That's the pose. And then once you've hit that for a moment or maybe several moments, then you lower it down slowly. And again, heart hits first, belly hits close second. That prevents that roll down kind of thing. Now, you might be saying, hey, my upper body strength isn't quite there yet. And that's totally fine. Again, this isn't a competitive practice. This is about getting to know yourself and the quality with which you do things. So if you need to, okay, you can step back to plank like normal. I think many people can just hold plank. All right, so this is kind of good to start to build that shoulder and upper body strength. But you're going to come down to your knees. Now, one of the things I commonly see when people come down to their knees is they come down almost like into a tabletop. And so what this turns into, and this is what you don't want to do, is leaving your hips and butt back here, and then your heart comes forward. It's really hard to keep your elbows in, and it's sort of awkward. So how you fix that is instead of your hips being on top of your knees, you make sure you take your hips forward. So I'm creating kind of like a ramp, if you will. All right, so I'm not creating a table, I'm creating a ramp with my body. This is super important. Again, my shoulders are over my base knuckles now, so that leaning forward is going to help with that. And then the same thing. You could almost think about going forward rather than down. So I'm going forward with my heart, forward, and this helps me keep my elbows into the sides of my body. I still hover for a moment. This is the pose, low plank, Chaturanga, stop here, and then heart first, belly second. All right? And I'll show that one more time. This is one thing I've seen teachers do before to kind of help this out. So once you put your knees down, you can lift your feet up and cross your ankles. And this kind of helps, I feel like, to get you into more of that ramp shape. And then same thing. Forward, elbows in, slowly lower, pause when shoulders are even with the elbows, and then all the way down. All right? Now, one of the important aspects of this is really making sure our shoulders stay back together. So even people who are strong, I see sometimes their shoulder heads going forward, especially right at the end of this position. So that's going to start to cause some discomfort in the shoulder girdle. So again, think about our shoulder loop from earlier in this lesson, okay? So I want you to do a couple of these, all right? So how we're going to make this into a little flow. So we're going to start in plank, and you're going to take an inhale here. All right. Now, if you need to use your knees, awesome. If not, that's awesome too. You're going to exhale slowly lower, elbows in, pause. Heart first, belly second. Make sure you're pointing the toes, pointing your legs. Inhale, shoulder loop. Squeeze together, down away from the ears. And then exhale. We're going to come into what's called child's pose. Or, well, it's got a lot of different names. And you're just going to push your seat back and rest your head down. Now, I'm dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, so it's hard for me to push all the way back. And that might be the same for you. So what you can do is grab a blanket and you take the blanket and you fold it up and put it behind your knees and then sit down. Now, my knee's still kind of sensitive, so I can even fold this up a little bit more or get a second blanket. But this is where we'll rest for a moment. And we'll come out. I'm going to just leave the blanket there. Doesn't bother me. Come into plank. Inhale. And again, try not to use your knees in this first inhale if you can. But then when you lower on the exhale, you can if you need to. I'm not going to do it on this one. Hover. Heart first, belly second. Point toes, point legs. Cobra. Shoulders Squeeze together, down the back of the neck long. And then exhale, child's pose. Inhale, shifting into plank, please. Tilting forward slightly. Exhale, lower, halfway, low plank. Heart first, belly second. Point the toes, point the legs. Inhale. As you lift, shoulder blades pull together. That squeezes your elbows together. Shoulders down away from the ears. And then exhale, back to child's pose. Now feel free to stay in child's pose for a moment. But I want you to go through about 5 more rounds of that at least. If you're digging it, if you want to take some extra yoga push-ups in there, you can. But again, you're going to inhale from child's pose into plank. Exhale, lower down into that yoga push-up or chaturunga, low plank is what I like to call it. Inhale into Cobra. Exhale, back to child's pose. Like I said, about 5 rounds. You can close your eyes. Get into your deep diaphragmatic breathing as best you can. That's going to make it a little bit more challenging. It's going to make it more meditative. And that's how we get this quality that really is unique to a yoga practice. Keep breathing. Check you later.